Flexion. Ladies, sisters, queens, you know what time it is. You've been in the presence of someone who looked like love, talked like protection, or walked like a leader. Flexion. But behind that smile was control. Behind those sweet words was a trap. Behind that charm was a deep, dangerous hunger, not for you, but for your obedience, for your silence. Flexion. For your submission. You were at war, but didn't know it was spiritual. You blamed yourself, but didn't see the spirit behind the mask. Let me tell you something. Flexion. The narcissist doesn't want a partner. He wants a mirror. He doesn't want to love. He wants to be worshipped. But God does not compete for space. Where pride sits on the throne, flexion. The Spirit of God will not rest. So what does he do? He shakes the room. He rattles your peace. He whispers in the storm as delivered with quiet intensity, slow, burning conviction. Reflection. Voice like thunder wrapped in velvet. You ever been with someone who felt like the answer but turned out to be the test? See, in the beginning, it's beautiful. It's dazzling. It's fast. Reflection. The attention, the charm, the way he looks at you like you're the only woman God ever made. You think it's divine. You think reflection. This is what I've been praying for. You finally let your guard down. You finally breathe. You finally stop fighting. Reflection. But what you don't see is that you've just stepped into a trap dressed up like a blessing. Because the enemy don't show up with horns. Flexion. He shows up looking exactly like what you thought you wanted. And the narcissist, he don't come as a monster. He comes as a mirror. Reflects back what you desire. He studies your wounds, flexion, your dreams, your prayers, and then he becomes the counterfeit version of your promise. And let me tell you, counterfeits always come before the real thing. He's not after your heart, reflection. He's after your worship. He wants the kind of power only God should have over your emotions, your mind, your decisions, your voice. 1 minute he lifts you up so high you feel like royalty. Flexion. The next, he drops you so low you forget who you are. And every time you question it, he twists the truth until you start questioning I or you. That's not love. That's spiritual warfare. Reflection. But here's the danger. He's good at it. Smooth. Skilled. He doesn't throw fists. He throws confusion. He gaslights until your voice sounds like a lie to your own ears. Flexion. And you start asking, maybe it's me. Maybe I am too sensitive. Maybe I do expect too much. You start walking on eggshells in a house you were supposed to feel safe in. Reflection. Sister, that's not love. That's captivity. The narcissist wants to be God in your life. He wants to be your source of joy, your standard of beauty, your moral compass. Reflection. Your emotional regulator. He wants you addicted to his approval so that the second he withholds it, you feel like you're starving and you wonder why your spirit is tired. Flexion, why your joy leaks, why you can't hear God anymore. It's because there's no room for both a king and a counterfeit in the same space. That throne in your life, it only fits one. See, flexion. God is a jealous God, not petty jealous, protective jealous. He don't compete for position in your heart. When you hand over your worth, your peace, your identity to a man, reflection, God will shake it up. He will disturb the waters. He will make what once looked like a dream feel like a storm. Because sometimes the breaking is the blessing. Flexion. And listen, this ain't judgment. This is love talking. We've all mistaken charm for character. All fallen for the pretty words with poison under the tongue. Reflection. All stayed too long hoping we could love someone into becoming who they pretended to be. But the truth is your soul knows, your body knows, your spirit knows. Reflection. You just kept calling that anxiety passion, kept calling that pressure protection, kept calling that silence peace. But real peace doesn't make you feel small. Flexion. Real love doesn't cost you your voice. And God don't send men to build empires on the back of your brokenness. So what do? You open your eyes. You stop making excuses. Reflection. You stop trying to fix what was never yours to carry. You stop trading your sanity for his comfort. Flexion. You stop praying for him to change and start asking God what he's trying to change in you. Because the narcissist ain't just a man, he's a stronghold. Flexion. And strongholds don't break with logic, they break with truth. They break with bold prayers, with fasting, with the word, with walking away even when it hurts. Reflection. With staying gone even when you miss him, with choosing healing over history. You can't defeat what you keep defending. You are not his mirror. You are God's masterpiece. Reflection. You were not created to be anyone's supply. You were created to shine, to lead, to love from overflow, not depletion. And you can't do that in bondage. Reflection. It's time to evict every lie you believed. Time to reclaim your power. Time to stop calling survival loyalty. Time to stop mistaking manipulation for love. The narcissist is not love. Reflection. He's a lesson. And the lesson is this: God doesn't send confusion. He sends clarity. And when God is in it, you don't feel smaller. You feel seen. True, you still watching reflection. Toward drop if this hit you. Toward just type as I'm waking up. That's so somebody needs to know they're not alone right now. A spoken slowly with depth. Reflection. Voice calm but cutting through silence like a blade. Room still, every eye on him. You know when you're in the middle of it, it doesn't feel like a spiritual battle. Reflection. It feels like confusion, like walking in a fog you can't explain. You don't see demons, you don't hear thunder. You just feel tired, disoriented, unsettled. Reflection. But can't quite put your finger on why. It starts small, subtle. You feel yourself getting quieter around him, not because you're at peace, but because your peace is under pressure. Reflection. You start hiding parts of yourself, watering them down. You're shrinking, but calling it compromise. You're uncomfortable, but calling it growth. You keep telling yourself, reflection. This is what it means to love someone unconditionally. But what if I told you the real fight isn't just against manipulation? It's against the lie that this is what love is supposed to feel like. Reflection. See, that's the trick of spiritual warfare. It doesn't come waving a red flag. It comes dressed in doubt. Comes in the silence after a backhanded comment. Reflection. Comes in the pause before you speak your truth and decide not to. Comes in those long nights you stare at the ceiling asking, why do I feel so far from God? It ain't random. Reflection. Because when a woman is under spiritual attack, the goal is never just her emotions. It's her identity, her voice, her alignment with God. And the enemy, he doesn't just want to hurt you. Reflection. He wants to wear you down, wants to drain you so slowly that by the time you realize you're in a war, your sword is already rusted and your spirit is already numb. Reflection. But God didn't create you to live like that. You think it's just a bad relationship. You think it's just heartbreak. But you don't see what's moving behind the curtain. Reflection. The spiritual realm is real. And this kind of manipulation, this gaslighting, this emotional domination, it's not just psychological warfare. It's spiritual assassination, flexion. Because if the enemy can distort how you see love, he can distort how you see a God. You think God is silent, but he's not. He's been speaking in your tears, in your gut. Reflection. In the way your joy vanished without warning, in the way the word used to light a fire in you, and now it barely flickers. That's not coincidence. That's spiritual warfare, reflection. And the thing is, you've been trained to fight it with logic, with long talks, with maybe if I just explain it better. But this, you can't outtalk a spirit. Reflection. You can't reason with a stronghold. You can't fix a soul wound with human strategies. This is spiritual. That means you got to fight it in the spirit. You got to get back on your knees. Reflection. Got to pray like your life depends on it, because in some ways it does. You got to stop letting every voice into your spirit except God's. Reflection. You got to cut off access to what's been feeding your confusion. And I know it's hard. I know it's lonely. But listen, healing doesn't always look like comfort. Reflection. Sometimes it looks like as isolation, and not because God is punishing you, but because he's pulling you away from the noise. Reflection. Because he can't restore your identity if you're still surrounded by the ones who dismantled it. And sister, God will not let you stay blind in a house where he meant for you to see. Reflection. He will shake your spirit. He will let the silence scream. He will dry up the affection. He will make sure you can't fake your peace anymore. Why? Reflection. Because he loves you too much to let you settle for a counterfeit life. And he knows this ain't just about you. It's about the generations coming after you. Reflection. It's about your daughter never seeing emotional abuse as romance. It's about your son learning how to honor, not control. That's why this is a spiritual battle. Reflection. The enemy don't attack what ain't a threat. He saw the oil on your life and decided to send confusion wrapped in comfort. Reflection. But what the enemy forgot is a woman who's been to the bottom and still got up. She's dangerous. You're not weak because you got caught in the web. Reflection. You're powerful because you're waking up inside it. And once you see the enemy's hand, that's when you can start reclaiming your territory. So you pick up your sword. Reflection. You get back in the word. You open your mouth and start speaking truth into the spaces where lies used to live. This ain't just healing. This is war. Reflection. Troy, if this stirred something in your spirit, drop or type, I'm taking my power back. It's a somebody else needs to feel your fight. Spoken with a slow burn. Low tone. Flexion. Almost a whisper at first. Voice of someone who's seen too much to lie to you. And sometimes God doesn't shout. He doesn't always send thunder. Doesn't always break the sky open. Flexion. Doesn't always come with a vision or a dream or some dramatic word from somebody with a title. Sometimes he just lets your peace leave. And we ignore it. We say, reflection. Maybe it's just stress. Maybe I'm overthinking. Maybe this is just what relationships feel like. No, it's not. Because when God is in something, reflection, even if it's hard. There's peace. It might be challenging, might stretch you, but it won't make you feel like you're losing yourself every day just to stay. See, peace isn't loud. Reflection, it don't beg for attention, it just is. And when it leaves, that's when you start to feel it in your body. You wake up tired even after sleeping. Reflection, your chest feels heavy and you don't know why. You can't pray, you can't think. You keep pretending to be okay around people, but inside something is off. Real off. Reflection, you try to push through. You call it a season. You tell yourself, God's testing me. But God doesn't test you through chaos. Reflection, He doesn't grow you by destroying your sense of safety. Let's be real, God didn't leave you, but He did leave that place, that situation, that dynamic, that relationship. Reflection, and now He's waiting on you to catch up because you've been praying for peace, right? You've been asking for clarity, for protection, for discernment. Well, sometimes reflection, the answer to that prayer isn't a word, it's a shift. God removes His peace from the situation so you can stop pretending it's still from Him. And that shift, it's not always loud. Reflection, sometimes it just feels like discontent, like frustration, like your spirit don't fit inside your life anymore. That's God saying, I'm not here anymore. Reflection, come follow me. But we don't, not right away. You know why? Because we're still trying to resurrect what God already walked away from. We're still trying to make it make sense. Reflection, still trying to change ourselves so it'll work, still trying to convince God to bless what He's already said now. Not because He wants you to suffer. Reflection, but because He knows what's be on the other side of obedience. But we keep asking, why don't I feel you here, Lord? And God is saying, because I'm not sitting in that dysfunction. Reflection, I'm not sharing space with manipulation. I'm not dwelling in a place where you're being drained, diminished, dishonored. I already left. I'm ahead of you. Reflection, I'm waiting on you to catch up. And I know it hurts. I know it's confusing. You look back and think, reflection. But it started off so good. I thought this was the one. I thought this was from you. Listen. Just because something looked like a blessing doesn't mean it was meant to be permanent. Reflection. Sometimes God sends something to us teach, not to keep. Sometimes He lets us walk into something that looks right so we can learn to listen not with our eyes, but with our spirit. Reflection. And when your spirit starts getting loud, when your sleep gets light, when your joy starts leaking, when your peace feels fragile, you better pay attention. That's not anxiety. Reflection. That's not overthinking. That's discernment. God's trying to pull you out without shouting, but He will shout if He has to. And sometimes, reflection, He'll let the thing fall apart just to save you from what you can't see coming. So stop praying for peace in a place God never called peaceful. Reflection. Stop asking Him to fix what He's trying to free you from. Stop begging Him to soften the heart of someone He never even told you to follow in the first place. Reflection. You don't need more confirmation. You just need obedience. You want your peace back. Start walking in the direction God's pointing, even if you don't have all the answers yet. Reflection, even if it hurts, even if you still love Him, even if it feels like you're walking away from everything you prayed for. Sometimes, reflection, the real blessing isn't what you get, it's what you walk away from. Because when God removes His peace, that's not rejection, that's rescue. So if you feel that shift, reflection, if this word hit your spirit, drop or type pass. God, I hear you too. Don't scroll past. Somebody's peace depends on your testimony. Delivered slowly, reflection, with a deliberate pause between thoughts, as if every word is being felt before it's spoken. Tone low and steady, reflection, but cutting deep. There comes a point when love starts to feel like a fight you didn't sign up for. Not the kind of fight where two people grow together, push through, lift each other. Reflection, no, this fight is one-sided. This is the kind of battle where you're bleeding and they're blaming, where you're bending and they're benefiting. And you call it love, but deep down, reflection, something in you knows it's not. See, the danger with a narcissist, they don't break you all at once. They do it in pieces, small, quiet cuts. Reflection, moments that seem forgettable, until one day you realize you don't recognize the woman in the mirror anymore. It starts with little things. Reflection, you stop wearing what you like because he doesn't approve. You stop speaking up because it doesn't like your tone. You start questioning whether you're overreacting. Reflection, even when he's the one who crossed the line. And you keep making room, keep shifting, keep changing. Because somewhere along the way, you started believing that your love could fix it. Reflection, that if you were just more patient, more quiet, more forgiving, he'd finally become the man he promised to be. But that's the lie. Reflection, because a narcissist doesn't want to be loved. He wants to be worshiped. He doesn't want partnership. He wants power. And the more you try to please him, the more he punishes you. Flexion, not always with words, sometimes with silence, with indifference, with withdrawal. He trains you to fear disconnection, to chase his approval, to work for crumbs like it's a feast. Reflection. And you forget that love isn't supposed to make you feel like you're failing just for being yourself. That's not your fault. That's not weakness. Reflection. That's conditioning. Because when someone manipulates you long enough, they don't just steal your peace, they steal your ability to trust yourself. And once your voice is gone, reflection, they win. That's why this battle isn't just emotional, it's spiritual. Because now the enemy has you trapped in a place where your worth is tied to someone else's brokenness. Flexion. You're praying for God to heal what was designed to harm. You're fasting for restoration in a situation that was never rooted in truth. Flexion. You're asking for peace while living in a house built on control. But God doesn't bless confusion. He doesn't move in manipulation. Flexion. He doesn't ask you to lose your identity to prove your loyalty. Let me say that again. God will never ask you to lose your identity to prove your loyalty. See, flexion, when the narcissist breaks you down, it's not just to win the argument. It's to reshape your reality, to make you doubt your memory, to question your emotions, to feel guilt for having needs. Reflection. And over time, that rewiring, that spiritual erosion, it costs you more than your voice. It costs you access to your power, access to your discernment. Reflection. Access to the woman God actually called you to be. Because how can you be bold when you've been trained to walk on eggshells? Reflection. How can you speak truth when you've been punished for your honesty? How can you rise in purpose when you've been taught to shrink in shame? This ain't just heartbreak. This is sabotage. Reflection. And it's not just happening in your home, it's happening in your soul. But here's the truth that might hurt before it heals. He's not going to change. Reflection, because the way he's treating you works for him. But you don't have to stay in the cycle. Reflection. You don't have to keep playing the role of healer, savior, fixer. You don't have to keep twisting yourself into something smaller just to be enough for someone who was never equipped to value you. Reflection. God never meant for you to survive in something he designed to free you from. And no, you're not crazy. You're not too much. You're not broken. Reflection. You're waking up. And the woman who wakes up, she's dangerous to the enemy. Reflection, because she's not fueled by fear anymore. She's moving with the clarity. And once you start to move in that clarity, something shifts. You stop apologizing for existing. Reflection, you stop begging for breadcrumbs. You stop asking God to fix a man and start asking him to restore you. Because this was never about who hurt you. Reflection, it's about who you're becoming because of it. So if that word sat heavy in your spirit, reflection, drop or type and dive sign, reclaiming me. So somebody else needs to know it's okay to leave what was never love. He steps forward slightly. Eyes scanning the crowd. Flexion, voice deeper now, but gentler. A weight in the words, a hush in the air. You know what's wild? Reflection. It's not just what the narcissist takes from you. It's what you almost forget you have. Because after the silence, the gaslighting, the guilt trips, reflection, the isolation, you start to forget that you have a voice. You forget that you were once bold. You forget that you used to laugh and mean it. Reflection. You forget that you were made in the image of a God who doesn't raise beggars but warriors. And that's where the enemy gets bold. Because once your spirit gets quiet, reflection, once your voice gets buried, once you forget the authority you walk in, the narcissist starts to believe he's your God, starts to believe his approval is your oxygen. Reflection, his acceptance is your worth. His version of you is the only one that matters. But let me remind you of something. When God made you, he spoke you into existence. Reflection. So the first thing the enemy wants to do is silence that same voice. Because your voice, that's not just communication, it's a creation. Your words create boundaries. Reflection. Your words break chains. Your words carry life or death over your situation, your family, your future. And the narcissist knew that. So he attacked it slowly. Reflection. He turned every word you spoke into a weapon against you, twisted your honesty into disrespect, labeled your strength as attitude, mocked your tears like they were manipulation. And now, reflection, you flinch before you speak. You question before you express. You apologize before you even finish the sentence. But here's the truth, reflection, that fear didn't come from God, but God doesn't bless relationships that silence the gifts he placed in you. He didn't give you a voice so it could be managed, manipulated, or muted. Reflection, he gave it to you to move mountains. So let's talk about what it means to take that voice back, not in volume, but in value. It means learning how to speak truth. Reflection. Even if your voice shakes, it means no longer explaining yourself to someone who never intended to understand you. Reflection. It means no longer watering yourself down just to keep someone else comfortable in their control. It means declaring reflection. Fuck, I am still here, and I still matter by us, because your healing starts with what you say, with what you ever name, with what you stop hiding. You got to start calling things what they are. Reflection. That wasn't just a rough patch. That was emotional abuse. That wasn't just his personality. That was control. Reflection. That wasn't you being too sensitive. That was your discernment sounding the alarm. Call it what it is. Because once you name it, you stop being owned by it. Reflection. And I know some of you have been silent for so long, you don't even know what your real voice sounds like anymore. Reflection. But here's the beautiful thing about God. He doesn't forget what he placed in you, even if you buried it, even if you gave it away, even if you forgot how to use it. He still remembers. Reflection. And when he starts to bring it back, you feel it in your gut first. It shows up as restlessness, as tears you can't explain, as prayers you didn't plan to pray. That's your voice waking up. Reflection. Don't ignore it this time. Don't silence it for his comfort. Don't hold it in just to keep the peace, especially when that peace is built on your silence. Reflection, because your voice isn't just for you. It's for the woman watching you. It's for the little girl you used to be. Reflection. It's for the version of you that thought she had to stay small to survive. You were never meant to whisper in rooms God called you to command. And it's not too late. Reflection. You haven't missed your moment. You're not too far gone. You don't need permission to rise. You just need your own voice back. So speak again. Even if it trembles, even if no one claps. Reflection. Even if it scares you, speak, because your freedom depends on it. If this pulled something up in your chest, flexion. Drop or type me voice still matters. So somebody needs your courage to remember their own. Steps forward again. Quieter now. Not because he's lost strength, reflection, but because the truth don't need to shout. It sits heavy. It lingers. The words hit where silence used to live. Let's talk about isolation. Reflection. Not the kind where you're physically alone. The kind where you feel alone even in a room full of people. Where you're married but feel abandoned. Where you share a bed, flexion, but sleep with grief. Where you smile for the photos but cry in the bathroom with the water running just so nobody hears. That kind of isolation. The kind the narcissist F creates. Because see, reflection, when someone's operating under that spirit, their goal is to cut you off from everything that reminds you of who you are without them. First, they attack your confidence, reflection, then your relationships, then your purpose, until you're standing in a life that doesn't even look like yours anymore. A life you built around their control. And the dangerous part, reflection, it didn't feel like isolation at first. Reflection, it felt like it just wants more time with me. It felt like it doesn't really like my friends. Maybe he's just protective. It felt like maybe I shouldn't go to that church. Reflection, he says they don't feed me spiritually. No, that wasn't protection, that was possession. Because isolation is how the enemy gets access. Reflection, not just to your relationships, but to your mind, to your habits, to your identity, to the truth you used to stand on. Now suddenly you can't call your sister without a fight. Reflection, you can't spend time with your girls without a guilt trip. You can't speak to your pastor, your therapist, reflection, your spiritual mentor, without him accusing you of letting people in our business. Or you ever notice how the narcissist calls it or business, but you're the only one bleeding from it. Reflection, you are not crazy, you are not dramatic, you are not disloyal for needing connection. See, reflection, God made you for community. He designed you to thrive in relationship, not to be controlled in isolation. Because when you get around the right people, people who see you, reflection, who speak life over you, who remind you of your strength, that breaks the spell, that starts to loosen the chains. That's when the enemy gets scared. That's why he had to isolate you. Reflection, because a disconnected woman is easier to lie to, easier to shame, easier to convince that she's too much or not enough or unlovable unless she becomes his version of her. Reflection, but the moment you get around real voices filled with the truth, not manipulation, the fog starts to lift. The pain starts to make sense. Reflection, and most importantly, you remember who you are. That's what the narcissist fears, not your anger, not your words, your remembrance. Because once you remember, reflection, you stop asking for permission. You stop apologizing for breathing. You stop shrinking to keep the peace. You stop blaming yourself for his brokenness. And let me tell you this, reflection, you don't need 50 people in your corner. You just need one person who's filled with God enough to look you in the eye and say, that's not love. Reflection, and you're not crazy. So if you've been feeling that pull, that ache, that whisper in your spirit that says you need help, you need people, you need out, listen to it. Reflection, start building again, not around him, around God's truth. Reach out, say something, confide in someone you trust, because healing don't happen in hiding. Reflection. And freedom isn't a solo mission. You weren't created to suffer in silence. You weren't made to survive off gaslight and guilt. You were built for connection. Flexion. You were born for community. And when you start to find that again, piece by piece, prayer by prayer, conversation by conversation, the chains start falling. Flexion. Don't let isolation be your prison. Let it be your wake up. Tasha, if this touched your soul like it touched mine, saying it drop it or type, ask God, flexion, surround me. She'll let the next woman scrolling know she's not alone anymore. Steps back slightly, lets the silence breathe. His voice softens, not out of weakness, but reverence. Reflection. Because what comes next isn't just truth, it's sacred. You ever ask yourself, why me? Why did I have to go through that? Why did I stay so long? Why didn't I see it sooner? Reflection. You ever sit in your car after another argument and just stare, not even crying anymore, just an empty? Like, this can't be my life. And let me tell you something. That emptiness you felt, flexion, that wasn't weakness. That was your soul saying, I'm tired of pretending this is okay. See. And for a long time, you might have believed it was all your fault. Reflection. Because the narcissist taught you that love meant endurance. That loyalty meant silence. That survival meant submission. But what he never told you was this: reflection. You were never as meant to be his mirror. You were made to be God's reflection. That's why you started breaking. Reflection. Because your spirit was never designed to carry someone else's broken identity on your back. See, a narcissist wants to redefine you. Reflection. Not through violence you can always see, but through language that confuses your soul. They don't scream all the time. Sometimes they just undermine. Sometimes it's the sigh. Reflection. Sometimes it's the eye roll. Sometimes it's the quiet little smirk when you finally speak up and they say you're being dramatic. And over time, reflection. You start to think maybe you are, so you shrink, you second guess, you mold yourself into whatever shape makes the least noise. But I want to tell you the truth that breaks all of that. Flexion. There was nothing wrong with you. Your heart was pure. Your love was real. Your fight was holy. You didn't lose because you were weak. You stayed because you hoped. But now you see it. Reflection. Now you feel it. That slow stirring inside you. That ache that won't let you settle. That's God reclaiming what was always his. That's not trauma. That's not delusion. Reflection. That's divine discontent. That's the spirit saying, daughter, reflection. This is not your final chapter. Because the moment you wake up, the moment you stop explaining away the pain, you begin to transform, and not overnight, not perfectly. Reflection, but deeply. You start asking hard questions. You start setting hard boundaries. You start letting people leave without chasing after their approval. Reflection. And that's when the enemy really starts trembling. Because a woman who has learned from the fire is a woman the devil can't intimidate. The pain taught you things comfort never could. Reflection. You learn to discern, not just desire. You learn to sit with God, not just beg for rescue. You learn the difference between being needed and being used. And now, reflection. You're not trying to get back to the woman you were before him. You're becoming the woman you were always meant to be. Stronger, wiser, softer in spirit, but sharper in truth. Flexion. You don't have to be angry to walk away. You don't have to get revenge. You don't even need closure. Your growth is the closure. Your healing is the clapback. Your peace is the proof. Flexion. This isn't just survival. This is resurrection. God doesn't waste pain. He repurposes it. So don't hide your story. Don't be ashamed of your scars. Reflection. They're evidence, not of what broke you, but of what you survived. Okay, because the truth is, what tried to bury you didn't know you were a seed. And now that you're rising, reflection, you're not just walking away from something toxic, you're walking towards something holy. So no more shame, no more silence, no more, maybe it was me. It was never you, reflection. And you never needed fixing, you just needed freedom. If this word caught something deep inside you, reflection. Drop it or type S, and I'm not who I was, and I'm not going back. So somebody needs to hear your becoming so they can believe in their own. He pauses. Flexion. Looks across the room like he sees something deeper than faces, like he sees souls, eyes that have cried behind closed doors, hearts that have learned to survive while smiling. His voice, reflection, steady, weighty, final, but not finished. You made it. And I don't say that lightly. I don't mean you made it through the day or the relationship or the divorce. Reflection. I mean, you made it through the war, the one nobody saw, the spiritual battle that wasn't fought with fists or fire, but with faith. Because that's what this really was, wasn't it? Reflection. Not just heartbreak, not just betrayal, not just a bad relationship. This was spiritual warfare. The kind that makes you question your worth, your sanity, your God. Reflection. Because a narcissist doesn't just go after your heart. They go after your soul's alignment. They try to become your God. Reflection. And when you stop worshiping them, when you stop dancing for crumbs of love they never intended to give, that's when the real attacks begin. But the good news, they didn't win. Reflection, because you're still here, still breathing, still praying, still rising. You might be bruised, yes, but baby, you're not broken. And every scar you carry now, it's sacred. Reflection, it's a testimony written in the ink of survival. You didn't crumble. You'll be transformed, because when God steps into your valley, reflection, he doesn't just pull you out. He makes you a witness. You became the proof that he still rescues, that he still restores, that he still rebukes the devourer when his daughters cry out. Reflection. See, what the narcissist tried to convince you was weakness. That empathy, that tenderness, that compassion. That was your divine design. Reflection. That's what made you dangerous to the darkness, and that's why you were targeted. But now you know. Now you see clearly. Reflection. You see how God didn't just walk with you through the fire. He refined you in it. He stripped away the fear. He exposed the lies. He burned off every identity that didn't come from him. Reflection. And when you stood in the ashes, when everything you clung to crumbled, and you didn't die there, you resurrected. Weezer sharper, unshakable, not bitter, not petty, but powerful. Reflection. Because grace taught you how to let go without losing yourself, how to forgive without forgetting what you learned, how to move forward, not out of pride, but purpose. You carry a light now. Reflection. Not one that blinds, but one that she exposes. You walk with discernment. You speak with clarity. You live with conviction. And the enemy, he's nervous now. Reflection, because the very woman he tried to silence, the very woman he tried to isolate, the very woman he tried to destroy is now a weapon in the hands of God. You don't need revenge. Reflection. You don't need recognition. You don't even need closure. Because what you got revelation. And that revelation is this: you are not what they called you. Reflection, you are not what you endured. You are not a failure, a fool, or a lost cause. You are anointed. And every step you take now, every boundary, every prayer, reflection, every no more. It's not just healing you, it's freeing the others, because you're not walking alone anymore. You've got an army of women who are waking up. Reflection, of daughters who are rising up, of voices that are finally speaking up. So keep walking, keep shining, keep testifying, because your story doesn't end with what happened to you. Reflection, it begins with what God is doing through you. If this entire message spoke to your spirit, type that I'm walking in my healing, or drop in the comments. So let the enemy know. Reflection, the silence is over and the shift has already begun. The steps forward one last time, voice low, firm, not dramatic, just to done with the lies, the shame, the silence. Reflection, each word now lands like a seal, not to close a speech, but to open a new chapter. You didn't survive all that to stay quiet. You didn't cry all those tears just to stay stuck. Reflection, and you didn't lose yourself just to stay lost. This wasn't just about him. This was about God waking you up, about shaking the dust off your purpose. Reflection, about pulling you out of darkness so you could lead others into light. Because now you know. You know what it feels like to be broken and rebuilt, to be lied to and still choose truth. Reflection, to walk through hell and come out carrying a heaven. You were never too much. You were never too soft. Reflection, you were never crazy. You received called door and now you receive chosen. So lift your head, straighten your spine, take up space. Reflection, not because you've got it all figured out, but because you've decided you're not shrinking ever again. You don't need permission to be whole. You don't need approval to heal. Reflection, you've got God, and that's enough. This was never just a battle against a man. It was a battle for your identity, for your voice, for your destiny. And now that you've reclaimed it, reflection, walk in it. He let every step you take from here on out declare one thing loud and clear: I'm not going back. So if you feel that in your spirit, reflection, type with amen or drop it in the comments. Somebody else needs to see your fire to find their own.